Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 books that I think are going to be 5-star reads for me. Now, this is technically kicking off a reading vlog for me. I'm going to be reading all 5 of these books and vlogging my experience reading them and seeing if they do end up being 5-star reads, seeing if I'm able to predict 5-star reads for me. There's something in my throat. Holy crap, I was trying to talk that out, and I was like, itchy down here, and that was a struggle. Anyway, let me take a sip of coffee here, okay? Get rid of the itchies. I wanted to talk out my thoughts in particular before diving into that vlog, just so I have like documentation of my thoughts on these books going into them, and just seeing if I'm able to like accurately predict things within these books that I feel like I might love. I know I've been bad at TBRs in the past, but I feel like I'm actually getting better at sticking to them, and I think it's because I'm like choosing to vlog myself reading the books that I'm saying I'm going to read, and I feel like that's been super helpful for me. So I will definitely be reading these books and documenting my experience reading them, and I'm super excited to share that journey with you when I'm able to share it, because it's going to take me some time to read these books. Just putting that on the table. I do have like one red flag going into this, and that's the fact that a lot of the books that I picked out for this video fall under the YA umbrella, and I am kind of in this place with YA where I just need a break from it. I feel like I'm a little bit burnt out from it. They just don't hit the same as they used to. I'm not over here saying that I will never read YA books ever again, because clearly I'm about to like read a bunch for this video in particular, but I definitely need a break because I am burnt out. And I feel like also with YA books now in particular, I have to do a lot of research before going into them. Otherwise, I end up very disappointed. I used to be able to just like pick up YA books whenever, but I feel like I have to go into them now a little bit on the hesitant side of things. So that's my only like red flag going into this video, and there are some other things that I will be pointing out about these books that like could make them not 5-star reads, which I know that I'm here today to like talk about like books that I feel like will be 5-star reads, but I just like can't help myself. I have to point out things that I am afraid of in going into these books and things that I feel like could knock it a star. So I will say that the books on my list today are books that I've been incredibly excited for a long time, and they're books that I've been putting off reading because sometimes when I know I'm going to love a book, I will like save it for a specific moment in my life when I just need a book that I know will hit, and a lot of these books are just that. Now, I will say that the research that I did for these books was solely personal. I did not check the Goodreads overall rating for these books. I did not check any reviews to see if people like enjoyed the book or didn't enjoy the book. I took into account elements from other books that I loved that I felt would align with these books. I'm not basing this off of anything else other than my own personal experiences. I'm just trying to figure out if I can predict 5-star ratings for myself without metrics of any sort. I'm only bringing my own curiosities and my own story preferences to the table. I will say I do want to do a video where I predict 5-star ratings with those metrics, with an overall rating in mind, with doing research and looking up other reviews. But this video in particular, I'm only going to be bringing my personal experiences to the table. I'm just curious to see if I can do it without it, but I also am curious to know if adding that recipe into the mix will help me find a 5-star read. But today, I've just picked out 5 books that I feel like have elements in them that are going to blow me away, that are going to make these books a 5-star rating. I'm nervous for some reason. I'm so excited. This just feels like a lot of pressure for some reason. I'm going to dust off that pressure. Let's get into the books. The first book on my list is a sequel, and that is Afterglow. The first book is Golden Boys. I loved and adored Golden Boys, and that is one of the main reasons that I feel like this book in particular could fall into 5-star territory for me. Golden Boys is one of those books that just like filled me up with the warm fuzzies. I still to this day feel like it's top tier YA contemporary, and I often feel like it's just like overlooked in general, and it's such a banger of a book. I feel like so many people would enjoy it and love it, so this is me saying more of you should read Golden Boys by Phil Stamper. I highly recommend it. It's the sisterhood of the traveling pants, but with characters that are gay. If that sounds interesting to you, then what are you doing? Go check out this book. I highly recommend it. The fear here with this book, and yes, I'm going to be talking about my fears, even though I'm here to predict and be confident about these books that I've picked out to be 5-star reads. The fear here is that this could fall into second book slump, where the sequel just does not match up with the first book. But here's the thing, I've loved every book I've read by Phil Stamper so far. Mind you, I've only read 2 of his books so far. I've only read Golden Boys, and then I also read The Gravity of Us, but both of those books, they did it for me. They had elements within the story that I loved. I feel like something in particular that Phil Stamper does so well is his characters. Not only his characters though, he has like a nice balance with like having characters with a lot of depth and then just having these like really interesting plots. And those 2 elements for me are very important. Like, If I have those two elements, I can sometimes overlook the writing style. Mind you, I really love a really solid writing style. Thankfully, I enjoy Phil Stamper's writing style, but just in general, like those are like the three things that I feel like I need the most in a book, which I feel like is something that like everybody feels like they need. But there are some people who like only need like character-driven stories, only need plot-driven stories, only need the writing to be good. But for me, like I need that happy medium between the three. I've already grown to love the characters with the first book, so going into this book, I'm going into it very excited to just like follow them on their next journey, their next chapter. But another reason this book could fail is because there is the small chance that like this didn't need to happen, that it should have stayed a standalone. And that is one of my biggest fears, because I often feel like books get expanded into duologies, into trilogies, when they really only needed to be a standalone. And I'm also somebody who just like really loves standalones. I don't need books to always have more than one book. Sometimes one book is enough for me. And one of my biggest fears with this is that that is the case, that it only needed to be one book. But I felt like the first book did leave things open in a way where like you kind of were craving more. There were a lot of things that were brought to a close, obviously. We got to see a pretty solid finale with the first book, but it did kind of leave you wanting more, wanting to see what happened next, wanting to follow this friend group into their next chapter. And so like knowing that, I feel like this could potentially be really solid. I'm optimistic in seeing what could happen next. I also just find Golden Boys in general to be like an incredibly important book, not only for like the gay representation, but also just in how it explores friendships and sort of like friendship maintenance, because it follows characters who are in a friend group and they kind of have to like separate for a long period of time. They have to go their own separate ways and go on their own journeys and then come back together. But it's a great showcase of like how you maintain those friendships when you're not together and how you make them work, even though it's hard to make those friendships work when you kind of go your separate ways for a long time. I'm hopeful that this will be another 5-star read and that this duology will become an all-time favorite duology for me. That's the first 5-star prediction. The next book on my list is An Arrow to the Moon. This author pitches this book as Romeo and Juliet meets a Chinese mythology. I cannot pronounce the Chinese mythology. I'm not going to try because I will just be disrespectful and I don't want to do that. But it's this mythology right here. It's not something that I'm familiar with, but I also do not want to be familiar with it before going into this book, because I feel like knowing it could ruin my experience with this book. I think a big reason this book could be everything for me is a couple of reasons. One main reason is that like I loved The Astonishing Color of After by this author. It's one of my all-time favorite books. I just feel like they were able to hit every emotional beat within that story to like really move me, and not every book is able to do that. Not every book is able to like hit my buttons, and it hit my buttons. It took my heart and just destroyed it and gave it back to me, and it was just a beautiful experience. I love having my heart destroyed. And will this book destroy my heart? That is the question. I'm not sure. The only issue that I had with her debut book, The Astonishing Color of After, which it was something that I was able to overlook, is that it does fall into a bit of a long-winded place, but like that was my only criticism of it, and I feel like it's something that I was able to overlook because there were so many other great things within that book, so many other things that I had positive feelings towards. Another big reason is that I love the author's writing style. It's one where every word choice just feels like it was fueled with so much thought and just strung together in a way that was just so intentional. And I just feel like not every author is able to achieve that. Like, let's be so for real. Like, there are some authors where it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I feel like this author's writing style matches up perfectly with like my ideal writing style. I think another thing is that this author knows how to craft a well-written magical realism story. And this one is in that same vein, and I'm so excited to see what she does with it, because she did so well with the magical realism element within the first book that I have such high hopes, and maybe it's bad to go into this one having high hopes, but I just can't help it. I can't help it. I know that this element in particular doesn't really matter, but something else that comes to mind is that this book was published 4 years after their debut book, and there's something about an author taking their time to put out their next book that I really appreciate. I know it's nice to have an author drop a new book every year, especially if an author is writing a series that you love, like you want those books to be dropping back to back to back, but sometimes it's really nice when an author takes their time to put their best foot forward. And truthfully, I don't know if this was a choice that was made by the author. Maybe the author had a hard time selling this book. Maybe that space of time was not up to them at all. But regardless, I find a lot of appreciation in sometimes authors kind of having a slower pace when it comes to publishing. It's always nice when you're reading a book and it doesn't feel like the author was just like rushing it just to meet a deadline. I've read my fair share of books where I've been like, the author was not taking their time with this. And they gotta do what they gotta do, but like, I can tell. The quality, oof, oof. Oof. Next up here we've got City of Dreaming Books. In this book we are following a guy who is trying to track down an unknown author through this city of books. Now the main reason, this might be a bad reason, but the main reason I feel like I'm going to enjoy this book is because literally when I first talked about this book, I heard nothing bad about it. Like, it was almost like I opened up the gates for people to just come in and be like, that book is amazing, that book is everything, you have to read it, it's so good. Which I know it's not the best to just be like, oh, everyone else loves it, so I'm going to love it too. Like, obviously there are other elements within this book that I think I'm going to love, but like, also having so many people be like, that book is amazing, that also felt really good and that felt really exciting. And I think it's also because this book doesn't feel like it's super hyped. Like, I don't see it that often in my feed and stuff. And so to have this like love fest show up in my comments section over this book was surprising to me because I haven't heard that much about this book. I don't see it that often. There is a part of me that is trusting all of y'all who came through and said this book was amazing. But outside of that, I already had like a really good feeling about this book. One, I really love the sound of the plot. Like, just the idea of being in a city of books, like that really intrigues me. That really excites me. As a book lover myself, obviously I'm going to enjoy the idea of a world surrounding books. Like, that just really excites me. The book also has really unique illustrations throughout it, and that can really enhance a book at times. Having that sort of visual aid is something that I really love and appreciate. And just in general, this book just gives me a positive vibe. Like, I look at it and I feel nothing but positivity, which is what I wish I could go into every book ever with, but unfortunately that's not the case. This book, I'm going into it feeling super positive, super excited. I've probably already said excited way too many times in this video. I apologize. I need to erase it from my vocabulary. Next on my list, I have Lonely Castle in the Mirror. This is one of those books where, well, I don't want to sound like I'm not like all the other girls. I am just so special and unique, but like, I had this book before it became like a big deal, like before it exploded. When I first picked it up, it had zero hype behind it, and then it exploded, and like so many people were reading it and loving it, and like I was really excited for everybody, but there was a part of me where I was like, dang, I wish I got into that book before the hype, because I feel like hype can just like kill a book for me. And it's not that it like killed this book for me in particular, but it definitely like lowered it on my TBR. Even though I know that it's going to be a book that I'm probably going to really enjoy, there was still a part of me that was just like, I need to separate myself from this hype and just kind of like come back to this book at a later date and hopefully really enjoy it. It's a book I've had such positive feelings towards for a long time. It feels very much so in that whimsical fairy tale-esque lane that I love. And that's the thing that I am the most intrigued about with this book in particular, is the plot itself. I've never read a book by this author, and I don't know that much about the characters. I do know that we are following several characters, but the thing that I am the most excited about is the plot. So in this book, we are following like 7 characters. 7 characters wake up one day and their mirrors are shining, and it basically like pulls them into this magical castle, and they are on this hunt to find this hidden room, and in this hidden room they will be able to be granted a wish. I love that it's a sort of whimsical competition book. Like, that alone really excites me, and it feels like it's gonna have a bit of a meaningful edge. I feel like I'm already drawn to the sort of game environment, kind of like the scavenger hunt style, but then to have the characters have to be vulnerable in order to like unlock clues or unlock the hidden room. Like, I really love that concept. I just really love the idea behind this. My only fear going into this book is that the execution might not be it. So will this be a case where the execution is top tier, or will this just end up being a 5-star book description? That's what I'm looking to find out. The last book on my list is The Jump by Brittany Morris. This one, I shouldn't be basing it off of this, but it's solely the fact that this author has yet to have a miss with me. Every book that they've dropped so far, I've consumed and loved wholeheartedly. Mind you, that's only 2 books, The Cost of Knowing and Slay, but like still, she's got a bit of a track record with me. But I feel like it has the potential to keep that track record going. Mind you, I do still have some concerns going into this one. I will talk about that in a second, but like, I also really love the sound of this book. Like, it sounds amazing. In it, we are following a scavenger hunt group called Jericho, and they are competing against another scavenger hunt crew in order to gain power that will help their city that they've grown up in. And it's been dealing with a lot of issues. It has a lot of like really frustrating things happening that are not being taken care of, and they're hoping that like winning this competition they'll be able to like make change, create change. And so I love the idea of that. I think like just like the scavenger hunt aspect of that alone, like I'm very intrigued by. My concerns though, because I do have some concerns. One is that we have 5 main characters. I don't think we're we're getting perspectives from... Oh, it looks like we are getting perspectives from everybody. Okay, well, maybe that will help things, because my concern going into this book is that, like, we have 5 main characters. We don't have a lot of time. Like, this is a very short book. It's only 248 pages, so my main concern was that we wouldn't get enough time with the characters in order to get to know them, in order to kind of, like, get to the depth of who they are. But, like, knowing now that, like, we get the perspective of each character, maybe that's made me feel a little bit better now. I don't know, I'm still a little hesitant, I'm still a little concerned. And then outside of the length with the characters, I also just have concerns with the length and the plot. Like, that description sounds amazing. My concern is, will we be able to like have a banger of a story with just this small amount of pages? That's a big concern for me. That's a big red flag for me. But I'm going to trust my past experiences with this author and hope for the best. Those are 5 books that I'm predicting to be 5-star reads for me. I feel like I should be like coming at you guys with a lot of confidence, but I clearly don't have a lot of confidence. But I think it is important to just like raise up my concerns in predicting these books, and maybe I shouldn't be having concerns for 5-star predictions, and maybe I should really be confident in the books that I'm choosing. But because I'm solely basing this off of like personal experiences that I'm bringing to these books and just kind of like going off of the descriptions, going off past experiences with these authors, it's hard to know how I'm truly going to feel about these books. I will say, if none of these end up being 5-star reads, I still feel like these are going to be books that I really enjoy and will rate rather highly. But I'm very interested to see how this video goes, how this vlog goes. Again, it might take some time for me to like fully have my vlog where I read these books out to you guys, but know that I am going to be working on this in the next few months, and I'm excited to see how it goes and to see where I land. I'm not feeling very confident though. I feel like I should be feeling a lot more confident, but that's okay. I'm an insecure person as it is, so that's probably what's bleeding through right now. I'm excited to get around to reading these books, but I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. What are some books on your TBR currently that you feel like are going to be 5-star reads from you? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to know too, actually, even though I'm a little concerned in asking this, if you guys have read any of these books and what your rating was for them. I'm curious, but also it kind of makes me nervous. Like, if you gave it a low rating, I'm scared of that. I'm scared of the low ratings, so I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.